Okay, next, the City and County of Denver.
I'm Pat Kennedy. I'm the pavement engineer for the City of Denver. So I'll talk a little bit about how we run our pavement management programs, and then talk a little bit about our quality program after that. So most of you know Denver. It's middle of the Rocky Mountain region. Denver's in the middle part of the state. Nice climate, a lot going on there. I am not a Bronco fan, so I'm sorry about the loss too the other night for the Seahawks. I'm a Seahawk fan. Born and raised in the Northwest. So a little bit about Denver. Denver is one of the fastest growing areas in the country right now. We are now over 700,000 people. We are growing about, now it's dropped off to only about 800 people a month into the city. We're growing about 10,000 people a year in the city. Our network right now, 5,700 lane miles with a mix of local arterial collector. The main thing is, our paving program. So over the years, we have done our analysis and have determined if we want to stay stable, a sustainable network, is we need to pave about 430 lane miles a year of a mixture of different treatments. We got a little extra marijuana money this year, so we can do about 450 lane miles this year. Marijuana money has been a boom for our economy. Now as these other states begin to develop it as well, then it'll probably cut back a little bit. You won't have as much of the marijuana tourist trade. But you can see there how we're doing our work. Self-performed mill and overlays, and that's generally a standard 2-inch mill and overlay. On our arterials, we will do a 3-inch mill and overlay. And the contracted, that's our marijuana money is going into that contracted mill and overlay. Hot in place recycle, like we just heard from British Columbia, we do a lot of that. We have to look at where we're going to do that, because those paving trains are pretty big and they can't make a lot of corners. So we look at where we can use that. It applies a lot we can even get it down into the local environment. We just got to look at the widths of the streets and no cul-de-sacs and that sort of thing. And then during the course of this, I might say chip seal, I might say cape seal. What we do is all cape seal. So we're chipping, then we come back and put a slurry over the top of it. So I use those terms interchangeably, but it is not just a pure chip seal. But you can see from that, those two, the hot in place recycling and the chip seal, that's over 40% of our annual paving. So it takes a lot of our, a lot of our funding is going into those preservation dollars. And that's helping us get that sustainable network. One of the other presentations, I think it might have been Dave, I think you were talking about the cost per square yard per year. These preservation treatments by far are our biggest bang for the buck. When we look at the cost of the installation of our cape seals and the life expectancy out of it, we're paying about 50 cents per square yard per year, where a 2-inch mill and overlay is closer to $1 per square yard per year. Longer life out of the mill and overlay, but we're getting maybe 50% more life, but at double the cost. So it's the bang for the buck is definitely in these preservation type treatments. And so you can see our 15-year history. We've done nearly 800 miles of cape seal and nearly 1,000 miles of hot in place. And again, that's out of that network of 5,700 lane miles. So a high percentage of our work has been these preservation kind of treatments. So the quality. I'm going to look at quality two different ways. One is your construction quality. And as Judith Corley had mentioned, you get these interns out here who don't know which end of the shovel is the steering mechanism. And they're out here watching projects. Well, we're not quite, that bad, but we have a lot of our more junior staff, our staff engineers and rookie project inspectors who are looking at a lot of these jobs. So one of the things we do, and Colorado mentioned the same thing, there's CAPA and there's ACPA and there's APWA has training mechanisms for these, newer members to the industry, so we make sure we get those guys out there learning that. We couple them with engineers and project managers who are a little more long in the tooth and have a little more experience, so we can mentor them a little bit. And, you know, for those of us that have been around a long time, it's hard for us to get out of the office. We get chained to our desks, but we still want to make sure we're getting out and getting these guys trained properly so they know what to look for. One of the things is when you're doing annual contracts every year of the same sort with your Cape Seals and your hot in place recycles or even the mill and overlays, you tend to get the same pool of contractors are bidding on those. And once you build up a familiarity with these contractors, you can learn which ones you need to watch a little more closer than the others. We've got some that we can turn them loose and we know we're going to get a good product. There's some we got to watch them like a hawk. And you learn that, and you know, we try to impart that knowledge on our newer guys so we can keep up with that. When we're dealing with our concrete repairs, like curb and gutters and ramps and such, we have to spend a little more time with those guys on that because, you know, ramps, we have to measure each ramp that goes in the ground on the corners to make sure they're ADA compliant because we're under a court approved settlement right now in Denver. We've also taken these guys, you know, our staff, and we've trained them how to do air and slump tests because we found that over the years that if you're meeting air and meeting slump requirements and you got the right mix design on that slip from the concrete company, you're going to meet strength. You know, the only time we're going to worry about doing cylinders is if we got panel replacements and we need to open it in 12 hours to 24 hours. Then we'll do cylinders and take a break. But for most of the concrete repairs, if we meet air and slump, we're going to meet strength. So we can start to look at pick and choosing what we're looking at. So if you want to look at the other side of the quality is the quality of the network. What are we doing to ensure that the data we're looking at is good data? And like Colorado, we work with Dayton and use DTIMs for our data, for both the data collection and for our data analysis and building our work programs. Well, one of the things we've done a lot is to take that data, look at, you know, how is that projecting out into the future? If we can't project out into the future properly, we can't develop good work programs on a long-term basis. So we're always looking to verify the deterioration curves. Every time we collect data, which is every few years we're collecting data, we want to make sure that in between that we're predicting that deterioration properly. When we do a treatment, we want to make sure we're resetting back properly. So there's a lot of things we're doing on the, you know, network side of things to ensure the quality of the data so we can do our job properly. One of the last things we're doing is, working with crack sealing. We hadn't, if you go back about a dozen years, there was some serious budget cuts in Denver and we lost our crack seal programs. We began to redevelop those crack seal programs within the chip seal and cape seal programs, where they'd go out and they'd do a crack sealing ahead of their projects. And if they had any funds left over, we'd do a little bit of extra ad hoc crack sealing work. Well, we're building that crack seal program again internally. We've got the equipment by trading in some old unused equipment, so we've got a couple pots for doing crack sealing. And now we've got the staff coming in. We'll be able to hire those in next year to run a couple crack seal crews internally. Now what we've got to do, again, is work what's going to be our benefit. Our stakeholders within the city and the managers and the city council, they've been really good about funding our needs, but we have to show them a benefit of what we're doing. With everything we've done in the past, we've been able to do that. Now we have to do the same thing with a crack seal. We have to develop, we have to show them that we're getting a life extension out of the pavements, whether it's by a jump in PCI or maybe it's flattening out that deterioration curve so it goes a little bit longer. So we've got a lot of work to do to justify how we're going to, we know analytically that crack sealing is going to extend the life of your pavement. Everybody sitting in this room knows that. But how do you quantify that? Because the people who are writing the checks, they want to know what we're doing on that end. So that's pretty much in a nutshell what things are going on in Denver. Any questions?
I hate to keep hogging the mic, but I do have a question actually for you in British Columbia. Is the hot in place recycle? Do you ever go back and redo the same road more than once on the?
We have. Actually, we did that for the first time last year. We started hot in place, I want to say it was about 2003 or 2002. We did our first treatment on an arterial. And I think it was in 16 or 17, we went and redid that street with a hot in place recycle. It's interesting because the hot in place is probably one of the hardest ones to do quality checking on. The mix I know is good because the mix comes out of our plant. We have very good control of our own mix design and what comes out of our plant. But when you do that hot in place and you're heating that existing pavement, scarifying it, adding a rejuvenator, and then laying an inch of new mix on top of that, that composite mix is really hard to do a density check on. You don't know what you get. We can do cores and we can do some bench tests later, but we're too busy to do that. So, but when you look at it over time, we see the life we get out of it. And we know we're getting 10 to 12 years on an arterial, and we've got some in local streets now that's 15, 16 years old, and maybe we put a cape seal on it, but some of them are still running great.
Mike Feast, Nevada DOT. Have you done cape seal on high volume urban street? And if so, how well received was that by your customer and your politicians?
We have not. If you go back again, kind of this 15-year time frame, then we weren't caping. We were just doing a straight chip seal, and we were having serious problems on high volume roads with braking and turning movements, and it was tearing those chip seals up. So we got away from those, and we're using them strictly in a local setting. Well, there we get the problems with the people screaming about the rough surface and the fugitive rocks. That's when we came back in and said, oh, wait, we can start caping these things. And all the complaints went away. And I know analytically we're getting a better life out of them by putting that smoother, by putting that slurry on them. We went back this year, and so we just finished like 3 weeks ago. We went back and we put a cape seal in an industrial neighborhood. We will see how that works with the heavy loads and the turning movements over time.
The preceding was produced by the National Center for Pavement Preservation. More information can be found on the web at pavementpreservation.org. Additional support provided by Michigan State University.